The blood rushed into my hands, leaving my fingertips buzzing as I clutched the key card to my own hotel. I stood there, staring at my sister blocking the doorway as if I were some stranger who didn't belong. From inside, my father's booming laughter rolled through the grand lobby of the Grand Azure, the very lobby I had designed, in the hotel I personally owned, while I was left standing on the outside like some unwanted salesman. "You don't honestly believe you're walking in here?" Clarissa said, her voice dipping into that condescending tone she had perfected over the years. She tugged at the hem of her designer dress, one I recognized instantly as a cheap knockoff. My friend, a real designer, had shown me the original sketches just last week at lunch. Clarissa, of course, had no clue I knew. She planted herself squarely in the doorway, making sure I couldn't pass. "This is the Grand Azure, Mari. The tasting menu alone costs more than you earn in a month." If only she realized I was the one who had written that menu alongside our Michelin-starred chef. "He's my father too," I answered, steadier than I thought I'd be. The little envelope tucked inside my clutch suddenly seemed heavier than it should. Inside was the deed to a Tuscan villa, one of the most exclusive properties owned by the Grand Azure chain. "My name's Maricel. I'm 38 years old, a hospitality entrepreneur, and this is the story of how I reclaimed my seat at a table that was, in every sense, mine." "Mom and Dad were clear," Clarissa went on, sneaking a glance at her reflection in the glass doors. "They want successful people here, people who won't drag the family name down." The irony almost knocked the breath out of me. Just yesterday, I'd approved a $100 million expansion for the Grand Azure brand. Yet here I was, apparently too much of an embarrassment to step foot inside my own hotel. The absurdity was so sharp it almost made me laugh. 10 years earlier, when I walked away from the family's small accounting firm to study hospitality management, they treated me like a disgrace. I could still hear my father's voice. "No daughter of mine is going to be a glorified waitress." So I let them think I was just barely scraping by, while in reality, I was building Azure Hospitality Group into one of the most respected luxury hotel empires in the country. That so-called glorified waitress now owned 35-star hotels scattered across 3 continents. "Maricel." My mother's cutting voice sliced into my thoughts as she appeared behind Clarissa. "What are you doing here? We already discussed this." Correction. They discussed it. What I got was a text from my mother this morning. "Don't come to Dad's birthday. It's at the Grand Azure. You can't afford it. Don't embarrass us." "I brought a gift," I said quietly, lifting the small envelope in my hand. "Oh, what is it? A gift card to Olive Garden?" Clarissa sneered, laughing at her own joke. "Or maybe you saved up enough tips to grab something from the mall." My mother's eyes narrowed as they fell on my clutch. A sleek piece of handmade Italian leather worth more than Clarissa's car. "Whatever it is, I'm sure your sister's gift will be more fitting," she said coolly. "She just made junior partner at her firm, you know?" Yes, I knew. I also knew her firm was trying to lease office space in one of my buildings, a lease they could barely afford. The real estate reports crossed my desk just yesterday. "Clarissa's thriving," Mom went on, her voice warming with pride. "She just bought a new house in the suburbs, has a luxury car, and a wonderful fiancé with a bright future." Then she gave me a long, critical look. "And you? Well, at least you're trying." I thought about my penthouse overlooking Central Park, my garage full of rare sports cars, and the private jet that had flown me in earlier this morning. "Yes, Mom," I said evenly. "At least I'm trying." Speaking of trying, Clarissa smirked. "That dress. Couldn't you have made an effort? This is the Grand Azure, not a roadside diner." My hand brushed the fabric of my black silk gown, custom-made in Paris by one of the most exclusive designers alive. The same designer, in fact, who had flatly turned Clarissa away when she begged for a commission last month. My stylist had mentioned it during my last fitting. "It's the best I could manage," I answered calmly. "Well, you're not coming in," Clarissa shot back. "We've got the entire VIP floor reserved. It's for family and important guests only." The VIP floor. My VIP floor. The one I'd redesigned myself just last year. Every chandelier, every painting, every polished stone hand-picked by me. "And who are these important guests?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Oh, you wouldn't know them," my mother said with a dismissive wave. "The Andersons, who run that top law firm. The Carringtons, their old money. And Mr. Prescott from the bank. Real distinguished people. I had to bite back a smile. Daniel Whitmore leased 3 of my properties. The Carringtons had been practically begging for memberships at my private resort. And Mr. Prescott? His bank had just come to my investment division seeking a massive loan. Right? I said softly. Very important people. Exactly, Clarissa said smugly, thinking I finally understood. So you see why you can't be here. Imagine what they'd think if they saw Dad's failure of a daughter carrying around a tray of cocktails. Clarissa, my mother said gently, though her eyes glimmered with approval. Don't be cruel. Maricel made her choices. If she'd stayed with the family firm, like you, things would have turned out differently. The family firm that now scraped by in a modest office inside one of my properties. The same firm that barely managed rent every month, according to the tenant reports I received regularly. At that moment, Trevor, my brother-in-law, stepped up, adjusting his tie. What's the holdup? Everyone's waiting for. His words stopped cold when he spotted me. Maricel, didn't expect to see you here. Clearly, I replied dryly. Trevor just made vice president at his bank. My mother chimed in, brimming with pride. Junior vice president, I corrected automatically. I knew because his bank handled a handful of my smaller accounts, and my financial team kept me thoroughly updated on every one of our banking partners. Well, it's still more impressive than whatever it is you're doing, Clarissa cut in. What is it now? Assistant manager at some chain restaurant? I thought back to the board meeting I'd left earlier that morning. The one where we discussed buying out Trevor's very bank. The paperwork for that acquisition was probably still waiting on my desk upstairs, in my private office. Something along those lines, I said smoothly. This is absurd, my mother snapped. Maricel, just go home. You're making a scene. I'll tell your father you couldn't make it. You mean couldn't afford it? Clarissa added with a laugh. My eyes drifted past them, through the glass doors into the grand lobby. The marble floors I had chosen, the chandeliers I had commissioned, the artwork I had personally selected. Every inch of it was mine. For a moment I considered leaving. Let them host their little party. Let them cling to the story they told themselves about me. But then I remembered the words of my very first mentor. Success only matters if you're willing to stand up for yourself. I lifted my chin, my shoulders tightening with the strength of everything I had built without a drop of their help. The tingling in my fingers faded, replaced by a steady, calm clarity. Actually, I said quietly, I think I'll stay. Before my mother could form a response, the tall glass doors pushed open, and out stepped Marcus, my head of security. He'd been with me since the very beginning, back when I scraped together enough to buy my first struggling little hotel 7 years ago. Together, we had turned that forgotten place into the shining flagship of what would become the Grand Azure chain. Everything all right here, Madam CEO? Marcus's voice carried easily across the entryway, steady and professional. Your table is ready upstairs, and Chef Adriana is waiting to present the new tasting menu for your approval. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Clarissa's jaw dropped, her perfectly drawn lipstick looking almost clownish against her suddenly pale face. My mother gripped the brass door handle like it was the only thing holding her upright. Marcus, I said warmly, smiling. Perfect timing. My family was just explaining how I apparently couldn't afford to eat here. He looked at me, genuinely baffled. Ma'am, with respect, you own the entire chain. Yes, I said, turning toward my family. Yes, I do. Shall we head inside? I believe you've booked the VIP floor. My VIP floor, to be exact. Trevor recovered first. This has to be a joke. You're a restaurant manager, nothing more. Actually, Marcus corrected him in his calm, professional tone. Miss Maricel is the founder and CEO of Azure Hospitality Group. She owns all 35 Grand Azure hotels worldwide, along with multiple resort properties and restaurant brands. The designer clutch slipped from Clarissa's fingers, smacking against the marble steps with a hollow echo. That's impossible, she stammered. The Grand Azure is worth billions, I finished smoothly, which makes your little remark about me not affording the tasting menu rather entertaining. I stepped past them into the lobby, my lobby, where the staff immediately straightened with respect. Good evening, Miss Maricel. Lila, my front desk manager, called out. The executive suite is prepared for your father's celebration. Thank you, Lila. I turned to my family still lingering in the doorway. Shall we? They trailed behind me in stunned silence, their eyes darting around as though seeing the Grand Azure for the very first time. Every employee we passed greeted me by name, each one proof of the leadership and loyalty I had built from the ground up. But your dress, my mother finally managed, her voice cracking. Custom from Paris. Around 30 grand, if I remember right. I've lost the habit of checking price tags. I paused, then added, unlike Clarissa's, which is a knockoff, the actual Valentino collection hasn't even been released yet. I know because I was at the private showing last month. At the private elevator, I slid the exclusive key card from my clutch. The doors opened directly into the VIP lounge where the party was in full swing. Conversation stopped the instant we entered. Maricel. My father rose from his seat at the head of the table, his expression torn between disbelief and confusion. What are you doing here? Your mother told me you couldn't afford this. I walked over, smiling faintly. Happy birthday, Dad. I hope you don't mind that I'm crashing your party, inside my own hotel. Your hotel? Mr. Prescott from the bank stepped forward quickly, his face breaking into relief. Miss Maricel, I had no idea you were Robert's daughter. We've been desperate to meet with you about that loan. Maricel owns the Grand Azure? Daniel Whitmore chimed in, wide-eyed. Robert, do you understand? Your daughter is the elusive CEO who's been snapping up prime real estate across the city. My father sank back into his chair, color draining from his cheeks. All this time, we thought you were just a glorified waitress. I arched an eyebrow. Your words, if I'm not mistaken, from the day I left the firm. But why hide it from us? My mother pressed, her hand clutching her pearls like they were keeping her alive. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. 10 years ago, you didn't believe in me when I needed your support most. Why would I hand over my success to a family who only values money and status? By that measure, I suppose I outrank everyone in this room combined. Clarissa dropped into a chair, her face ghostly white. The villa in the south of France, she whispered. The one I tried to rent last summer but was mysteriously unavailable. Mine, I confirmed. My property manager forwarded me your request without realizing the connection. I turned to Trevor. Same with the office building your firm's struggling to lease. And the resort membership you've been waitlisted for, Mother. Maricel. My father began, his voice trembling. Save it. I cut in, raising a hand. I didn't do this to hurt you, though heaven knows you've hurt me enough. I'm simply done hiding what I've built just to protect your pride. Facing the room, I lifted my voice. Please enjoy the evening. Everything is on the house. My house. I started to walk away, then remembered. Oh, Dad. About the envelope Clarissa wouldn't let me hand you earlier. It's the deed to a villa in Tuscany, one of my finest properties. Consider it a birthday gift from your so-called failure of a daughter. The next hour unfolded like something out of a dream. People who once looked through me at family gatherings now crowded in, eager to talk business. The Carringtons begged for that resort membership. Mr. Prescott cornered me about his bank's loan. And my family? They sat shell-shocked. Clarissa's fiancé slipped out the side door once he realized her promised future at the firm hinged on a lease she couldn't afford, in my building. Trevor spent the evening glued to his phone, probably hunting for a new job. My mother alternated between sobbing and loudly insisting she had always believed in me. As the party thinned out, I found my father alone on the terrace, staring at the glittering skyline. Those buildings, he said quietly, pointing toward the horizon. How many of them are yours? Enough, I replied, stepping beside him. Including the one your firm works out of. He nodded slowly. I was wrong about you, Maricel. So very wrong. Yes, I agreed, my voice calm. You were. Can you forgive us? He asked. I thought of all the years of dismissals, the cutting words, the way they measured me only by what they assumed I wasn't. Forgiveness isn't the real issue, Dad. Respect is. You never respected my choices or my abilities. You only respect what's already proven. Now you have your proof. I smiled faintly. At least you'll never run out of impressive dinner party stories. You can always tell people your daughter owns the Grand Azure. I left him standing there and headed up to my private office on the top floor. Tomorrow, the family dynamic would shift forever. Clarissa's golden child status would crumble. Mom would rewrite her version of history. Trevor's bank might soon be ours. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, I finally sat at the table I'd built with my own hands, inside the walls I owned, beneath the roof I paid for. And that was worth more than all the belated approval in the world.